This is the Apple Watch Series 10. 10 years of the Apple Watch, and this is what we have. 3 years ago, I tried the Series 7, and I ended up returning it back to Apple. 3 years later, I'm back to test this out and see if there's any improvements, and if my mind has been changed. But before we get into it, let's go somewhere more exciting than my home office. So I'm actually getting a bit of deja vu because last time I did an Apple Watch video was on the Series 7 and I came here and I also ended up in my car for a little bit because it was chucking it down and freezing cold, and because the clocks have gone back, it's now miserable in the UK and I'm in my car again. Anyway, onto the watch. So as we know with Apple, every year there's going to be a minor update. Very rarely is there a huge update in which it's actually worth spending all of your money. The Apple Watch Series 10 though, many people thought, with it being the 10th edition, that this would be a big year and a big change. Like the iPhone 10 was, they got rid of the home button. Maybe they could do something similar here. And they have, but they also haven't. And it's very interesting, and that's why I bought the watch in the first place. What they have done, and something that I noticed straight away, it feels so much more comfortable. This is probably the #1 thing about this watch. The Series 7 was comfortable, but it was nowhere near as comfortable as this. This is like, you don't even know you're wearing it. I wear it all the time for sleep tracking in the evenings and when I go to bed. I wear it at the gym. Even during the day, I don't even notice it's on my wrist until I get a buzz or a notification. It's so comfortable. I cannot stress to you how comfortable this is. That's probably my favorite thing about this. Probably one of my only favorite things as well. But anyway, we'll get onto that. The actual stats on this, the Series 10 is 10% brighter, 10% thinner, and also 10% lighter. You notice all of these things, particularly with the most important thing on this device, which is the screen. Now the screen has some interesting stats. For the first time ever, an Apple Watch has 1 Hz refresh rate. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can have the new watch face that ticks by every second and you can see the progress of a minute on your watch, even when it's in standby. And always on display, it will show 1 second ticking over. This also means that when you're doing a workout, your screen's not full brightness, but you can still see the seconds ticking away, the heart rate, all that kind of stuff. I cannot remember if the Series 7 did that. Quite possibly it did. The screen is also now 2000 nits, so we're getting up to near iPhone levels of brightness, which is crazy for a watch. And you can absolutely tell in the daylight and the direct sunlight, not that there's been a lot, because look at it. Jesus. But there has been sun when I've tried this and it is very, very bright. You can definitely see a lot more than you could on the Series 7. And they made a big thing about this wide angle OLED screen. And I thought it's going to be one of those things that they're bigging up, and it's actually nothing. It actually makes quite a big difference. And I like the display. I think it's great. It's bright, it's big. I've got the bigger 46mm watch. I think 46mm looks great. However, I gave it to my girlfriend, she tried it on. She has smaller wrists than me and it looked a bit silly, so maybe she could go for the lighter, smaller version of the 42mm. But the size is great. The best thing about this screen is that it will curve around the edge. So when you're scrolling through information, this info will bend around the screen. But it does mean that when your wrist is down and the always on display is on, you can still see that information and it is a lot easier to see. Essentially, this screen means it's brighter from an angle, which is an all-round win if you're going to have the always on display on, which I would, because I want a watch to always show me the time. I get these people that are obsessed with battery life and I need to get 3 days of battery life and stretch it out. But if you're going to turn off all the features of this device, whether that's a watch or a phone or whatever, there's no point in doing that because you're losing all the features that make that thing great. Don't you always want to see the time? I mean, maybe someone's going to fly at me in the comments, bring it on, but I find that a bit odd. You always have to lift your wrist up. You may as well lift your phone up to see what the time is. Anyway, I'm going to jump outside because it's not raining anymore. Right here is where the other evening I shot a time lapse of the Northern Lights. So the Northern Lights came down here, and this is extremely rare that they come this far south into East Anglia. And this footpath sign, it looked like it was a cross and it made the whole thing look really religious. So I got comments on the video when I uploaded it, put it on the Getty website, and they were like, so how did you do that? How did you get the religious cross? And I was like, silhouetted it and made it look like a cross. It's actually a footpath sign. So the more you know. I went all the way to Iceland at the start of the year twice to get the Northern Lights. A few months later, and they're literally in the same county as where I'm from. Unbelievable. The links are below to my content on the Getty website. Now, back to the Apple Watch. So another thing I like about this watch is really the health features. This is what makes this watch special. And it's always been a feature of the Apple Watch where you buy this device, you're not buying it because it's a watch, you're buying it because it gives you the heart rate, the sleep tracking, the blood oxygen, the ECG app. These are all crazy things. They're superb, they are fantastic. However much you use these is up to you. It does use a lot of battery life. But for me, these are all really important things. You see people being warned that they will have an irregular heartbeat or they'll have low blood oxygen. All of these things help to alert you and go to your GP or your doctor and say, I might have a problem, can we have a look at this? So I really understand the value of that, and I think it's really important that people understand that these are really powerful tools in your wrist. It's amazing. So with the Series 10, you'll have yet another health feature, and this is sleep apnea detection. Now this is where it will tell you if you have any breathing disturbances in the night. It is yet another fantastic health feature on this Apple Watch. People are going to benefit from this, and if it saves people's lives and gets them checked out, then that's a great idea. And some very small other things to note is that now this is the first Apple Watch that you can actually play audio from the speakers. Now you can play your favorite tunes and some of the best music from upcoming artists across the world right on your wrist. Does this mean that I think you should be sat on a train blaring it out full blast? No. Is the speaker the most amazing thing ever? No. And another cool thing with the Apple Watch is that you can now detect water temperature and how deep the water is. Now, I didn't get a shot of this, but after I went swimming in the pool, I didn't even look at my watch whilst I was swimming because I was focusing on not drowning. But when I got into the hot tub after, I then looked at my wrist and glanced at it, and it was telling me how deep the hot tub was, and it was 1.5 meters deep. So that was the only time where it automatically turned on. Maybe other people who swim properly and not just in a 20-meter pool at their local gym will be able to use this. And so with the water depth sensor, this is something that was only on the Ultra before, and now it's coming back to the standard generation of the Series 10. So we're kind of seeing this now with Apple. They're putting standout features on like the Pro devices, like the iPhones, they'll get the action button and that comes down to the standards. And now we're seeing it with the watch, with the water depth sensor. This is good to see because it essentially levels the playing field a little bit more. And as you might be able to see, it's clouding over, it's spitting of rain. Let's go. I really wish this Apple Watch came out a few months ago because I really could have tested it a lot harder than in a couple of weeks. As I was on assignment with Getty in Montreal, then I went straight to Berlin for the Euro final the last week. Unfortunately, we lost again. And I went to Paris for the Olympics, so I had like 2 months away from home. This would have been great to test then. So apologies that this didn't come out earlier because I would have given you an incredible review. But instead, you've got 2 weeks of me going to the gym, swimming, and going to London. So you'll have to make do. So I'm jumping in mid-edit. One thing I forgot to mention whilst editing this is the double tap feature. Essentially, this comes down from the Apple Vision Pro. So if you have the Apple Vision Pro, you already know about this, and you probably have very deep pockets. So essentially, you can double tap and cycle through when you're on your watch face through the weather, reminders, and any other information you have there. But the best thing about this is that when you get a message and perhaps you can't use your hands to reply, you simply double tap and then it brings up dictation. You speak your message, double tap again, and it will send it. That's the best thing about this feature. I forgot to add it in this review. Anyway, back to the video. So I've come to the middle of nowhere with my football to talk about the Apple Watch. But first, I'm gonna do some keepy uppies. One thing I've noticed though is that you don't really get a lot of information on your watch. You do have to go into the health app to see your sleep and your sleep cycles, how much you've done. On the watch, it will give you the very brief description of what stage of sleep you had, how much you slept. That's really interesting, I love that. But after a few days, it was like, so what am I actually getting from this? Is it just like stats on your life? One thing I will say about the Apple Watch is that you're getting so much data. You're getting data from your sleep, you're getting data from when you work out and how hard you're doing via the training load app, although you have to tell it how hard you've worked and you have to wait several days, possibly I think up to a month before you get the data. You also get your ECG app, you get your blood oxygen, but not in the US because I think it's banned after some legal trouble. You're getting a lot of information from all of the sensors. It does lead me to the question of what am I meant to do with all this data? I understand that comes from a place of privilege because I'm 25, I go to the gym 5 times a week, and I'm in a good space health-wise. I understand that most of these health features are going to be designed at people who perhaps are concerned about their health and maybe want to keep track of it. And for them, this information is critical. Like, you're able to go to your doctor and show them that your ECG you did in your watch shows an irregular heartbeat. Like, that just highlights a brand new world of opportunities health-wise. And that's probably the best thing about the Apple Watch. Having said that, these features have been on the watch for some time. They're obviously adding bits and pieces every now and then, like the sleep apnea this year. The other thing what I wanted to talk about was training load. This is interesting because it's meant to show you how hard you've been training for the last few days. And I didn't realize that you need, I think, a month. I've been asked on my watch that I need another 17 days of data. So I couldn't actually see what my training load was. But obviously if you stuck at it for this amount of time, you'll be able to see. After your workout, you have to select how easy it was or how hard it was, or if it was medium. You have to select how hard it was for you, and you're basically providing that information. Obviously you have to provide some information for it to work. I get that. I'm not really sure really what the purpose of this is, but maybe for athletes. But then again, I'd be using the Apple Watch Ultra if I was an athlete. I wouldn't be using the Series 10. And another thing I noticed with the Apple Watch Series 10 is because it's so thin, it's 10% thinner, it sits a lot tighter to your skin, and where you attach the strap has actually been moved around because they've rejigged it and made it a lot lighter and thinner. You can tell, again, I'll emphasize this is the comfiest thing I've ever worn. Right, we're back inside in the warm. No more football, I promise. Just want to talk about a few more important things with the Apple Watch Series 10. It's the battery life and charging. Every year, everyone says, I wish Apple would just update the battery, put a massive battery in, longer than the standard 18 hours. That did not happen with the Series 10, unfortunately, but what they did change is the charging speeds. Now, this might seem like a bit of a gimmick because you have crap battery life, but you can charge it quickly. Who cares? Here's the important bit. Previously, you could charge up to 80% on the Series 9 in 45 minutes. This year, on the Series 10, you can charge 80% in just half an hour, according to Apple. Now, is this true, or is this just like a fluffed up number in a perfect environment? I did an actual test to see the charging results. I ran the Apple Watch completely out of charge, put a timer on my phone, and then I stuck it on the charger and I left it there. And this is how long it took. It charged to 85%, which I thought was really impressive considering it was completely flat and dead. Yes, it's a tiny battery, but that's so good that even if, say, you used your watch and you charged it in the morning, you used it throughout the day, you want to track your sleep at night, the only option really you have is to charge it overnight. Well, now you can literally stick it on the charger for 10 minutes and that should last you. In my personal usage, I think I lost like 15% max overnight. I love the fact that you can do this. This now helps the battery somewhat, but wouldn't it be nice if they just gave the Apple Watch Ultra battery into this Apple Watch Series 10? Maybe on the Series 11, or maybe they're just keeping you separate so you can spend that extra money and get the Ultra. That's probably why. So the battery is still 18 hours of normal use, 36 in low power mode. Something else I want to note, which is probably more of an iOS and iPhone thing than it is to do with the Apple Watch, is obviously Apple Intelligence is now starting to roll out. I'd be really interested to see in the coming weeks and months when Apple Intelligence fully launches, how that's going to affect the Apple Watch Series 10. I don't think Apple mentioned it at all in the Apple Watch reveal, but I want to see if they're going to mirror this completely, or what parts of the Apple Intelligence are they going to bring over to Apple Watch? Is there going to be any? There's a chance that they don't bring any Apple Intelligence features. That would be disappointing, but it's a shame that it hasn't been launched already, that I couldn't test it and show you guys already, but I can't test something that's not out. Speaking of which, should I test the 16 Pro Max? I think the 16 Pro is really interesting for a number of reasons, and I'd like to test it out myself. I've had a go on it at the Apple Store in New York, and it intrigued me because there wasn't a massive amount of difference, but at the same time, when Apple Intelligence launches, that's going to transcend those phones. Anyway, that's a side topic. And so here is my summary on the Apple Watch Series 10. I have never really been a lover of smartwatches. I made that clear in my Apple Watch Series 7 review, but I really want to love this watch. I want to be able to use this, and I want to be excited to use it and just use it as my daily watch. But I've never felt that with this watch. I've never felt like having this watch on that my life is worse without it. And so you're probably wondering, you've bigged this watch up the whole time, are you going to keep it? Well, my verdict is no, I'm not going to keep it. The sole reason is because I don't need an Apple Watch. I really want to like it, but I can't justify spending £429 when I could put that towards perhaps a new MacBook or a new iPhone or something that's actually going to affect my life in more ways than others. And obviously a lot of people will love this for the health features and say it's worth way more than £429. Totally get that. For 429 quid and for the amount I actually use a regular watch, I don't think it's worth it for me personally. It doesn't mean that I don't like it, but I don't love it. If I loved it, I would keep it, but unfortunately, I don't love it. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are like me that thought they needed an Apple Watch and that it would really transcend their lives. And I sat down and I thought, if I lost this watch or I didn't have it, would I replace it with another Apple Watch Series 10? And the answer is no. But that doesn't mean this is not right for you. If you love Apple, you're already in the ecosystem, you already know what you're getting into. And that's coming from someone who does have a MacBook Pro, that does use an iPhone, uses those two things daily, and absolutely love both of them. So if you're deciding on whether you should buy an Apple Watch, if you are someone who has an Apple Watch and you're under Series 8 and below, I would think about it. If you have the Series 9, I probably wouldn't bother. And if you don't have an Apple Watch, then I would consider, do I need this watch? Am I going to benefit from having all of this data from my sleep tracking, the respiratory rate I have overnight, my heart rate throughout the day, the ECG, the blood oxygen? Will you miss these out of your life if you don't have the Apple Watch? And if the answer is no, you probably don't need the Apple Watch. But if the answer to any of those is yes, you can get the Apple Watch and you will love it. So overall, I actually enjoyed this experience with the Apple Watch Series 10 more than I did the Series 7, but ultimately, I don't think these are for me, and I might not get an Apple Watch again. And as much as I enjoyed using this for the last 2 weeks, my Apple Watch Series 10 will be getting returned back to Apple. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.
It came without a warning. I'm not the one I used to know. I'm feeling like a stranger in places I once called home. Is this just how it is now?